I'm a bit of a snob when it comes to designer perfumes, but these are going to be my top 10 designer fragrances you should know about. Hello, my name is Anya, and I publish fragrance videos on this channel every Wednesday. I also post bonus videos throughout the week, so if you're interested in seeing those, make sure you're subscribed and your notification bells are turned on. If you're interested in seeing even more of my content, I do publish daily on TikTok and Instagram under the username anechkafragrances. So yes, I am a snob when it comes to designer perfumes for a few main reasons. First, I think the pricing has gotten a little bit out of hand for a lot of brands. Now you can get a full-size bottle for something around $150 when it comes to certain fragrances. And considering the fact that you can get some niche and indie bottles for far less than that, I am more likely to gravitate towards that other category. Also, side note, I think the packaging and the general experience isn't necessarily something I would want to pay $150 for. So that's the other reason. But finally, the main reason I tend to not gravitate towards designer fragrances is simply because the scent profiles tend to be a little bit redundant. I'm looking for something that is more on the unusual side. I have enough fragrances in my collection already to identify what scent profiles I keep seeing over and over again. So when it comes to buying a new fragrance to add to my collection, I'm looking for something different. These fragrances, most of them are highly underrated. You may have not heard of them before, but they are fragrances that I absolutely highly recommend. I got my start working as a sales associate at Ulta Beauty, and I would sell fragrances to people, and many of these fragrances were the ones that people absolutely gravitate towards, and I'm about to share them with you today. So let's get started. The first fragrance I have to share with you is Alien by Mugler. This is one of my favorite fragrances of all time, and it has three key notes listed. First, we have white florals in the form of jasmine. Then we have cashmere, and finally we have amber. It sounds like a very simplistic scent pyramid, but this is absolutely a highly unusual fragrance. To me, I get a jasmine that's very unique, very easily identifiable, and I also get something that's maybe a bit soapy. This is absolutely a beautiful fragrance, and when I was first getting into perfumes, this was my signature scent. The only reason I have such a small bottle is because when I was working in retail, I would use the tester and I would just spray that all on myself all the time, and I barely used this bottle here. So I don't wear this fragrance that much anymore since I associate it with a different part of my life, but I highly recommend this if you're looking for a really great jasmine fragrance. This is an absolutely iconic scent, and I think if you're interested in rich florals, you should definitely give this a shot. I absolutely love this. I'm also going to discuss two additional fragrances by Mugler. Mugler happens to be one of my favorite designer houses of all time. Recently, they have had some releases that I do not absolutely love, but I really, really love what I have from the brand, and that includes Alien Fusion and Aura. So Alien Fusion is a flanker of the original Alien. This one differs in the sense that it has orange blossom and cinnamon. So it definitely has this warm, soft, spicy character to it that makes it actually really well suited for the warmer weather. It's a lighter, more airy version of the original Alien, but instead of that beautiful jasmine, you have some other florals in here with that soft, spicy accord. Aura is absolutely, arguably, probably my current favorite Mugler fragrance of all time. This is highly unusual, and if you have a chance, I would definitely recommend getting your nose on this, especially if you're interested in branching out from your typical designer fragrances. This has notes of vanilla, like a tonka vanilla, a bit of rhubarb, and green accords. So you have a lot of elements in this fragrance that are not usually paired together, and what you get is an almost medicinal green fragrance with rhubarb, which adds this tart character to it that is absolutely addictive. This fragrance is beautiful when it comes to humid weather. So if you're interested in wearing a fragrance that is highly unusual, brilliant in the tropical humid heat, this is absolutely stunning, and I think it's highly underrated. Both of these fragrances are discontinued, that's why I'm putting them together, but I believe you can get Aura still on FragranceNet. You can still find it online for a pretty affordable price. Alien Fusion, you kind of have to look up a little bit harder for, but both of these fragrances, standout designer perfumes. I would highly recommend them. But I feel like Aura is my favorite. Next, I'm going to talk about a fragrance that I did not get for a while because I thought this was a bit overrated until I actually smelled it. And it smells quite lovely. I'm talking about Mugler by Guerlain. This is a beautiful vanilla and lavender combination with added notes of iris and sandalwood. Let me tell you, I love sandalwood. I think it's an amazing note and is present in a lot of these perfumes. This is so beautiful. It's a very comforting scent, partly because of that lavender, but what I like about the lavender here, it's not too overbearing, it's not a dominant note, it's just in there with the vanilla and it's light, it's comforting, it's just really, really pretty. I wear this often, I really appreciate it, especially in the warmer weather. This was my go-to fragrance, or one of my go-to fragrances for the springtime, and I absolutely adore it. This is amazing. I know a lot of people really love Libre by YSL, and maybe at one point I'll probably get myself a bottle or two, but that vanilla or that lavender to me is a bit abrasive. I don't think I'm ready for that personally, and those are not fragrances I tend to really gravitate towards. But I do love the lavender in here. I like how soft it is. I like how it's not the dominant note. The dominant note here is definitely vanilla, and I absolutely love this perfume. One of the most talked about fragrances right now is Hypnotic Poison by Dior, and I'm here to tell you I'm not a fan of that fragrance. To me, it smells very Play-Doh-like, and I just do not like it. It does not last that long on my skin. I do not get what other people are getting when they smell that fragrance. It's just not a fragrance for me. However, the fragrance that I absolutely positively adore from Dior is Pure Poison. This is such an underrated gem that I absolutely love. This has white florals of gardenia, a bit of sandalwood in the base, and jasmine. It also has this clean white musk that is absolutely addictive. If you're interested in musky perfumes and you also really appreciate white florals, this is definitely one to try. It has an amazing sillage, and I do get compliments on this one. This has been my go-to fragrance this summer. I absolutely love it. I think it's amazing and, again, highly underrated. So these fragrances, well, most of the fragrances I'm talking about are very readily available in stores. So if you want to smell these fragrances, you can definitely go in and just have yourself a little bit of a smell session and try these fragrances out. I definitely do not recommend blind buying if you can avoid it. And this is definitely one that I would suggest going in store to smell, because you probably won't hear a lot of people talk about it, but in my opinion, it is highly underrated and honestly amazing. Next up is a highly unusual fragrance that is discontinued. I'm going to say that right off the bat, but if you do come across this fragrance at a reasonable price, I would highly recommend you check it out, especially if you love your musks and white florals. I'm talking about Narciso by Narciso Rodriguez. I absolutely love this perfume, and it's highly unusual in my opinion and very unique. So this has notes of gardenia, jasmine, and musk, but the musk in here, it's very unusual to me. It's almost like it's almost an animalic musk. So in my opinion, it's quite a seductive fragrance. It's a very heavy fragrance. It's definitely not for the faint of heart. You have to love musk and white florals to enjoy this fragrance, because otherwise it's going to be too overbearing for you. This is a perfume, 2 sprays, 3 sprays for me is enough, but this will last all day. And there's something about the scent that's very feminine, it's very alluring, but it's also very seductive. The way the scent is executed, it's not going to smell like straight up musk. It's going to smell like musk with a bit of a feminine twist. But the way this is done, I feel like whoever wears this smells very feminine and very intoxicating, but in quite a nonchalant way. You definitely don't smell like you're trying to seduce someone with this fragrance, but I feel like that would happen if you're wearing this scent and the person you are trying to, get it on with is a lover of musk, because this is such an unusual fragrance. It's very, very intoxicating in my opinion, but I can see this being a very polarizing perfume. So again, I caution you, get this fragrance if you are a fan of animalic musks, if you don't mind a woody base, and if you love white florals, because I can see someone who doesn't like gardenia not liking this perfume, and gardenia and jasmine are two very prominent notes in this fragrance. But otherwise, I love this perfume. It's one of my absolute favorites, and I cannot believe they discontinued it because, in my opinion, this probably is one of the best Narciso Rodriguez perfumes, if not the best. Gucci Moumar is another popular fragrance, and for good reason. This is a very sentimental perfume to a lot of people because it does evoke a lot of nostalgic feelings. It has top notes of chamomile and bitter almond, which gives it this really beautiful herbal quality. Then, as it develops, you get jasmine and musk, and finally, in the base, you have cedarwood, a bit of vanilla, and sandalwood. So this is a beautiful fragrance. It's so nice. I don't think I've smelled anything like it, and it's definitely one that I reach for whenever I want something that is a bit different. Still not something that is overtly herbal, but I just want something that smells absolutely amazing. This is the one I go for. It is a bit light, and that's the only reason why I don't absolutely reach for this as a signature scent. I find I have to overspray this in order to appreciate it, but if you're looking for something that is definitely not on the heavy side, this is a wonderful option to try, and I definitely think it's one of the most unique designer fragrances out there, in my personal opinion. The next fragrances are going to be from a brand that people love to write off as smelling too old-fashioned or too typical. I'm talking about Chanel, and I'm going to start off with this fragrance that you already probably are very familiar with, and I'm also going to introduce two new fragrances you may not have heard of, but you definitely need to get your nose on. So Coco Mademoiselle is an absolute classic. It starts off with this zesty citrus, and in the heart, you have some beautiful florals in the form of ylang ylang, I believe rose and mimosa. And then in the base, you have that signature patchouli. And this is a classic fragrance that a lot of people are very, very familiar with. When I first was getting into fragrances, this was my absolute go-to. It just smelled so classic and elegant and beautiful, and it did last all day. It still does. I think this is an amazing fragrance, and something about this perfume will always be in my heart. I love the ad, I love Keira Knightley, and I love the way this perfume was introduced, and I just think this is such a beautiful fragrance, and it's an absolute classic for me. Definitely one of my favorite fragrances of all time. Two other fragrances from Chanel that you absolutely need to get your nose on if you haven't already are from the Chance line. So they have the original Chance, and then I believe three additional flankers. I am most a fan of Chance Eau Fraiche and the Tendre version. So I'm going to start off with Chance Eau Fraiche. This is a fragrance, I don't own these fragrances, but I am very familiar with them. This is a fragrance that when I was working retail and people would come in asking for a scent, but they didn't want anything that smelled like any other fragrance. They wanted something that didn't smell too perfumey. This is a fragrance I recommended, and 9 times out of 10, people would buy a fragrance. People would buy a bottle of this perfume. This is such a beautiful, zesty fragrance. It's absolutely stunning. It has top notes of lemon, cedar, citrus, heart notes of pink pepper, jasmine, and hyacinth, and then a base of white musk, patchouli, vetiver, teakwood, iris, and amber. This smells like your perfect zesty fragrance, but it's not a typical citrus. It's very refined, and it does last all day. If you haven't gotten your hands on this fragrance, or if you haven't smelled it, next time you find it or next time you are in the vicinity of it, definitely give it a chance because people do not know about this scent. And again, people love to write off Chanel as a fragrance house, but I think that particular fragrance is absolutely chef's kiss gorgeous. And again, I don't own a bottle personally because I think that that is a fragrance I was pretty much very familiar with from when I first started getting into perfumes. So it was more something that I really appreciated, but I never actually bought a bottle of it because it's not something I'd wear now. But if you're just getting into fragrances and you want something totally unique, but also something zesty and beautiful and amazing, something that lasts all day and that people will just gravitate towards, get that scent. It is amazing. Eau Tendre is another one that is wonderful. This has notes of quince, grapefruit, hyacinth, jasmine, musk, iris, cedar, and amber. So again, this has a zesty grapefruit note that is highly addictive, that's very beautiful, very feminine, and once more, the quality of it is absolutely gorgeous. It does last all day. Personally, I prefer the Eau Fraiche, so if I had to choose one, I'd definitely choose the Eau Fraiche version. But again, two fragrances by Chanel that are readily available. A lot of people don't talk about them because a lot of people don't know about them, and you definitely should get your nose on them if you haven't already. Next up is Idole Nectar by Lancome. This is a newer fragrance and it's actually brand new to my collection. This has gourmand notes of caramel, popcorn, and then your signature Idole rose, and vanilla. So this is a flanker of the original Idole, but I like it because it has that gourmand aspect, and I tend to reach for a lot of gourmand fragrances. However, this one is definitely unique in my collection because it doesn't smell overtly gourmand. It is actually, in my opinion, a very classically inspired perfume. Rose and vanilla are definitely the dominant notes here, but the popcorn and caramel provide a beautiful accent to this fragrance that make this a very inviting and very delectable perfume. You won't smell like an edible dessert when you're wearing this fragrance, but you will smell the aspect of caramel and popcorn that give the rose and vanilla here just the right sense of nuance that make this a very unique fragrance. And I've had this fragrance for less than a week, and already I've put a bit of a dent in this, and I'm kind of regretting not getting the larger bottle because I am really into this fragrance and I think it's amazing. But yes, if you haven't already gotten your nose on this, I would definitely give this a shot, especially if you are a fan of the rose note like I happen to be. And I also love the bottle. I think it's so beautiful. The bigger one is even more pretty because it has like, I mean, it's obviously larger. This one is like the small 0.8 ounce, but it's absolutely beautiful. I love the coloring on this. And yes, it's one of my favorite fragrances of the moment. Is absolutely stunning. All right, those are all the fragrances I had to share today. Thank you so much for watching till the end. We did end with more than 10 fragrances, but nonetheless, I do feel like this was a pretty solid selection, and most of these fragrances are pretty readily available. So if you are in a store that carries these fragrances, highly recommend you give these a sniff. These are some really unique and amazing scent profiles that I absolutely love. If you aren't already subscribed, I'd highly recommend you do so, especially since I have been publishing more than once a week. And even though I publish a video every Wednesday, I'm trying to figure out what days work best for me for that additional bonus video. So definitely subscribe and make sure your notification bell is turned on so you do not miss that extra bonus video every week. Once again, thank you so much for watching till the end, and I'll see you next time. Bye.